Hello boys and girls, welcome to another Algebra 2 skills review video. This one is for standard A-REI.3, and today we're going to be solving linear equations and inequalities in one variable. Also in the standard, we're going to do this with equations with coefficients that are represented by letters. That's not going to be in this video, that's not going to be on the skills review. That's something we're going to see early on in our Algebra 2 course. Okay. So let's look at a couple problems here. We're going to look at an absolute value, we'll look at an inequality, and then we'll look at one that's got a bunch of fractions in it. Okay, so we're going to write all the solutions of this absolute value equation. Okay, so for starters, let's talk about unwrapping. Okay, if I want to get at the x, you should notice that I want to get rid of this adding 8, and that really should come first, right? Because that's the last thing that happened to that left side. That's the first thing I'm going to unwrap. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 8. And I'm going to have the absolute value of 2x minus 5 equals 5. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do now. And you folks may already remember how to do this. I'm going to bring my little hand over here. Oh, and I wish this was on top. Let's put this on top. Bring the front. Okay. So it's on top. So it's covering this up. Okay. I'm doing that for a reason. I want you to think, okay, I'm covering this up. What could be in the absolute value? Right? If I take the absolute value of something and I get 5, what could be in there? Well, it could be positive 5, right? Or what else could it be? It could be negative 5. So that actually tells me what to do next. The thing on the inside could be 5, or the thing on the inside could be negative 5. So I'm going to get my hand out of the way, and I'm going to do just that. I'm going to split this into two equations. The thing on the inside could be positive 5, or the thing on the inside could be negative 5. So I split this into two linear equations, and now I'm going to go ahead and solve these just like normal. So I'm going to work the red side here, and I'm just going to unwrap. I'm going to add 5. And I get 2x equals 10. And then I'm going to divide by 2. And I'm going to get x equals 5. And that's going to be one solution, which I'm going to check. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and get my other solution here. So, and again, I'm going to now treat this normal. I've unwrapped the absolute value. I'm now going to treat this like I normally would. So I'm going to add 5 again. And when I do, I get 2x equals 0. And I can divide by 2. And x is still going to be 0. So I get two solutions, right? I get x is 5, and I get x is 0. I'm going to write this a little nicer than what I just did there. So x equals 0, and x equals 5. And it's worth for me to go check that with absolute values, because sometimes we can get answers that don't really work out. So I'm going to go up at the top, and I'm going to check 0, and I'm going to check 5. So if I have absolute value of 2 times 0 minus 5 plus 8, what does that equal? Well, 2 times 0 is 0. I get the absolute value of negative 5 plus 8. Well, that's 5 plus 8, and that's 13, and that's what's on the other side. Okay, great, that works. Okay, I'm going to check, what do we have? Positive 5, right? Yeah, I'm going to check positive 5. Okay, so I'm going to get this stuff out of the way, get myself a little room. And I'm going to have absolute value of 2 times 5 minus 5. Then I'm going to subtract 8, and hopefully we end up with 13. So here I get 10 minus 5 is 5. I get the absolute value of 5 minus 8 equals 13. And sure enough, that's 5. Oops, excuse me, that's plus 8. So I say that's actually wrong. So I get 5 plus 8 is 13, and 13 usually equals 13. So that works out. So they both work out there. Notice how in my check here, when I actually did this working out, I got those two things I said before, right? The absolute value of the inside stuff could either be 5 or it could be negative 5. And that's exactly what I came across in the check. And that's not a coincidence. That's actually going to happen as we check these. So hopefully that was helpful with the absolute value. Let's look at an inequality. Oops, not that one there. Let's do this one here. Okay. So we're going to solve the inequality, and we're also going to show the solution graphically, which means we're going to do this on a number line. So if you notice here, we have just one variable x. I'm going to unwrap. So the first thing I'm going to unwrap is this adding of 1. Why would I want to do that first? Well, that's the last thing done on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap it. It's just hanging out there by itself, right? So I'm going to go ahead and unwrap it. Negative 2 times x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 8. Okay, and then I have this little question on the side here. With inequalities, when you multiply or divide by a negative, you should do what? Well, hopefully you remember this. We're going to flip the sign. Flip the inequality. So I'm going to divide by 2 here on both sides. Excuse me, negative 2, right? Or I can multiply by negative a half if you want to think of it that way. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2, and these are going to cancel nicely. And I'm going to get x plus 5 is, remember, flip the sign. So less than or equal to negative 4. And again, it's because of this dividing by 2. It's not any other sign that's going on in this problem. It's this dividing by negative 2 right here. That's what makes me flip the sign. All right, let's get that out of the way. And now I'm just going to go and unwrap this. I'm just going to subtract 5 from both sides. And I get x is less than or equal to negative 9. Okay, so hopefully that process made some sense. Hopefully that's something you remember from your Algebra 1 class. I'm going to go ahead and graph this now. And all we need for a graph, let's just make a really simple graph. I don't need all the little tick marks between 0 and negative 9. I'm just going to put 0 on there for just to give me some perspective here. And I'm going to put my solution somewhere out to the left, right? I know negative 9 is less than 0, so I'm just going to do that. And I'm just going to do my little circle here and have it point in the right direction. Well, if it's less than or equal, right? I'm actually circling the wrong thing. It's the or equal to part. Is that a closed or an open circle? Well, it's closed. That means it's filled in. Because negative 9 is actually part of the solution because of the or equal to. And now which way do I point my ray? Well, I want to include numbers that are less than negative 9, so that's going to go down to the left. So that's enough of a solution. Again, you don't need to go crazy with the number line. Just put 0 in your solution, or if you have more than one solution sometimes, you can put the other numbers down there. But that certainly is enough for us to represent our graphical solution. Okay, on to the last one in this skill review here. We're going to solve this equation with fractions. Okay, now my guess is that pretty much every person watching this video, you guys probably don't like fractions too much. Well, don't tell anybody else, but they're not my favorite either. So the first thing I usually do when I see fractions in a problem is I get rid of them. I clear the fractions. Okay, so the question is, how do we do that? So here's how we do it. Here's your little note on how to do that. I'm going to multiply every single term. I'm going to multiply every single term by the least common denominator. So multiply all terms by the least common denominator. And we call that the LCD, right? Okay. I'm going to multiply everything by the least common denominator. So when I look at my equation here, notice how we have a 4 in the denominator and one fraction. Okay, this is really 5 over 1, right? I have a 3 in this denominator, and again, this is 3 over 1. So between the 4 and the 3, well, what's the least common denominator? Well, they both go into 12, right? Okay, so 12 and nothing less than 12, right? Okay, so I'm going to multiply every single term by 12. That's my least common denominator. Notice how they both go into 24 also, but there's no need for me to go that big of a number. So I'm going to multiply every single thing by 12. 12 there, 12 times the 5, 12 times the 2/3 x, and 12 times the 3. And if you do this with the parentheses and putting the 12s there, you're likely to not miss any of the terms. So if you get used to doing that, that might be a good thing for you. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and do this kind of carefully here. I know that any of these denominators are going to go away. So here's how they go away. Well, 12 is really 4 times 3. So while I can write 12 there, I'm really thinking 4 times 3, right? Okay, so when I multiply, I'm going to cancel the 4's. And now I'm left with 3 times 3 times x. Well, that's 9x. Notice how my fraction has disappeared. Fantastic, isn't it? Okay, got a lot of stuff here, so I got to kind of clear it up a little bit. Again, this was just this thing times 12. Okay, my next number is not so bad. It's just 5 times 12, right? There's no denominator there, so I'm just going to get 5 times 12 is going to be minus 60. And then equals, okay, well, again, 12 over here is 4 times 3. So the 3 is going to cancel with the 12 partially, right? And I'm going to get 2 times 4, x, or 8x. And then lastly, I have the plus 3 times 12. Again, I'm going to get some of these things out of the way as I look at them. Plus 3 times 12 is going to be plus 36. And in one step, one step, I multiplied by the least common denominator. I cleared all my fractions, and now this is something that I'm much more comfortable with dealing with. Okay, so I'm now going to go ahead and clean this up. So what can we do here? Well, I think I want to get all the x's to the left side. That way I end up with a positive x. So I'm going to subtract 8x. I get x over here, minus 60 equals 36. And what can I do here? I can add 60 to both sides. And I get x equals 96. Okay, so again, the main idea with this one, most of this should not have been difficult, particularly once I got down to this black line here, right? But really, when you see all those fractions, I strongly suggest you clear your fractions, multiply by the LCD, and clean things up a bit before you carry on. That makes things a lot nicer. Okay, so what do we do here? Did we solve linear equations? Yeah, we did a couple, didn't we? I think we did 2 equations in there. One was the absolute value. One was the last one we did with the fractions. And then we solved some inequalities with one variable. We did one of them, I guess, with one variable. And again, we're leaving off the idea of coefficients represented by letters. We'll see that as we get a little more into our Algebra 2 course. So take care and have a good day.